In the village of Ukuni, there was a very eligible bachelor named Ugo, who held a big secret that stopped him from finding a wife. Ugo was known far and wide for his handsome features and his skill in pottery. His hands shaped the finest clay, and his pots, bowls, and jars were sold across many villages. Yet, despite being the most admired man in Ukuni, Ugo remained unmarried, a fact that baffled the villagers and worried his aging parents. Each evening, as Ugo worked in his family's pottery shop, his mother would watch him with concerned eyes. "Ugo, you should be married by now," she'd say softly. "It's time for you to find someone to care for you. Your father and I will not be here forever." Ugo would make a smile, masking the turmoil beneath his face. "When the time comes, Mama," he would reply, focusing on the clay in his hands. "There is no rush." Over the years, many women had shown interest in him. First, there was Amaka, whose beauty and cooking were legendary in the whole of Ukuni. She had tried to woo him with lavish meals and sweet words, but Ugo always found excuses to avoid her invitations. Then there was Nneka, the wealthiest woman in the whole of Ukuni. She was confident, bold, and sure that her family status would make her the perfect match for Ugo. She pursued him openly, but Ugo, imagining himself in her grand home, surrounded by her relatives and their judgmental eyes, felt only fear. He politely rejected her advances, keeping his distance. The villagers began to whisper, "Why does Ugo remain single?" They would ask. "Is he too proud? Does he think no one is good enough for him?" But only Ugo knew the truth. He had a secret that controlled his life, and he believed no one could love him if they knew. One day, after turning down another marriage prospect suggested by his parents, Ugo left for a neighboring village to deliver a large order of pottery. As he approached the village, he saw a woman struggling with a broken cart. Her yams had spilled across the road, and she was attempting, without success, to lift the cart back onto its wheels. Without a word, Ugo stepped forward to help. "Let me do that," he said, his voice kind but firm. The woman, whose name was Nkem, smiled gratefully. "Thank you. I wasn't sure I could manage this alone." Together, they lifted the cart and reloaded the yams. As they worked, Ugo noticed how at ease he felt around her. Nkem was different from all the women in Ukuni. There was a simplicity and warmth to her that soothed him. She didn't try to impress him or ask for anything in return. She just seemed to enjoy their conversation. For the first time in a long while, Ugo felt his guard lowering. Over the following weeks, Ugo found reasons to visit Nkem's village more often. He would deliver pottery or pass by the markets, hoping to run into her. Each time they met, they would talk for hours, laughing about small things, sharing stories from their lives. Ugo began to realize that he looked forward to seeing her, and her presence was becoming something he looked forward to. He wondered if, with her, he could finally have the life he was too afraid to pursue. But as Ugo's feelings for Nkem grew, so did his worries. The closer they became, the more anxious Ugo felt. What if she found out? How could he ever explain his secret to her? The thought haunted him and prevented him from having peace. One evening, as the sun was setting over the village, Ugo and Nkem sat by the river bank, watching the water shimmer beneath the fading light. Nkem turned to him, her eyes searching his face. "Ugo, I feel like you are holding something back from me," she said softly. Ugo's heart skipped a beat. He swallowed hard, trying to compose himself. "What do you mean? You seem distant sometimes, like there's a part of you you're not letting me see," Nkem said. "I don't want to push you, but I can feel it." Ugo forced a smile. "I suppose I'm just used to being on my own," he said, though his mind was racing with fear that she was getting too close to the truth. Nkem smiled back, but there was a flicker of sadness in her eyes. She didn't push further, and Ugo was relieved. but the tension between them lingered long after the conversation ended. A week later, Ugo fell ill. He had been overworking himself in the pottery shop, and by nightfall, he was burning with a fever. His parents, concerned, sent word to Nkem, knowing that she had become a trusted friend. Without hesitation, Nkem came to his side, caring for him through the night. She stayed with him, cooling his fever with damp cloths, murmuring words of comfort as he drifted in and out of sleep. In his fevered state, Ugo felt her presence, steady and reassuring, but he was too weak to fully grasp what was happening. By morning, Ugo's fever had broken and Nkem had left. His mother told him that she had gone to the village square where the festival was taking place. Grateful for her care, Ugo decided to find her and thank her in person. As he approached the square, he saw Nkem at the center of a large group of villagers. She was talking animatedly, her laughter ringing through the air. The crowd around her was laughing as well, clearly entertained by her story. Ugo smiled at the sight, but as he drew closer, he overheard snippets of what Nkem was saying. "And there he was," she said with a playful tone, "lying there so peacefully, and then..." The crowd roared with laughter. Ugo froze, his face turning pale with embarrassment. He felt sick, and panic took hold of him. "She's talking about me," he thought. His worst fear had come true. Nkem had discovered his secret, and now she was sharing it with the entire village. They were all laughing at him. For years, Ugo had hidden a secret that made the idea of marriage unbearable. Ugo suffered from chronic flatulence, a condition that embarrassed him deeply. No remedy, no healer could cure him. The thought of sharing his life with someone, of being vulnerable, of being exposed, filled him with shame. He believed that if anyone discovered this, they would mock him, or worse, pity him. So, Ugo built walls around himself, finding refuge in his work and keeping everyone else at a distance. Overwhelmed with shame, Ugo turned and fled. His heart was pounding in his chest. He rushed back to his home, locking himself in his room. As his mind raced, he thought to himself, how could she do this? How could she laugh at him with everybody else? A soft knock at the door interrupted his thoughts. "Ugo," it was Nkem's voice, gentle and concerned. "Go away," Ugo muttered. His voice was thick with emotion. The door creaked open, and Nkem stepped inside. Her expression was confused but gentle. "What's wrong?" she asked. "You know what's wrong," Ugo snapped. "I heard you in the village, laughing with them, telling them about my condition." Nkem's eyes widened in surprise. "What? No, Ugo, that's not what we were talking about." "You were laughing," Ugo said, his voice shaking. "I heard you. I was telling a story about my young brother," Nkem said softly, stepping closer. "He used to make those kind of noises when he was little, and I was just teasing him. I wasn't talking about you. I would never share something so personal about you. That's not my information to share." Ugo stared at her, his heart still racing. "You weren't?" "No," Nkem replied. Her voice was steady and filled with compassion. "I've known about your condition for a while ago, but that's your story, not mine. I would never betray your trust like that." Ugo felt his body relax, the tension draining from him. Shame washed over him, not because of his condition, but because he had assumed the worst of Nkem. I thought if you knew, you would laugh or tell everyone." Nkem took his hand. Her touch was warm and reassuring. "I'm not here to judge you, Ugo. I care about you, all of you. I've never seen your condition as something that defines you. It's just a part of who you are." Ugo's chest tightened. By this time, it wasn't with fear, but it was with relief. He had spent so many years hiding, so many years believing he wasn't worthy of love because of his condition. But here was Nkem, looking at him with nothing but understanding and acceptance. "I've been so afraid," Ugo whispered. "Afraid that no one could ever love me if they knew." Nkem smiled gently, squeezing his hand. "You don't have to be afraid anymore." For the first time in years, Ugo felt a sense of peace. His secret, the thing that had kept him isolated and fearful, no longer held power over him. He had found someone who accepted him fully, someone who saw beyond his flaws and loved him for who he truly was. In the weeks that followed, Ugo began to let go of his fear. He opened up more to Nkem and their bond deepened. The villagers who once whispered about Ugo's reluctance to marry now saw a man who found happiness in vulnerability, and though his condition remained, it no longer controlled his life. If you enjoyed this story, please like, subscribe, and comment for more African folk tales. Until next time.